Yeah, okay. My name is Bobby McFerrin. 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 Yeah. And this is how I do what I do. First off, if you know the difference between a chest voice, that's the chest voice that I'm speaking in right now, and then there's the head voice like this. So if you can learn how to go back and forth between the two like that, then you've got a pretty good start. The other thing is having a flexible tongue is very important so that I can get the notes out. So a good exercise is bidida and diddla. Say bidida. Bidida, diddla, diddla, bidida, bidida, diddla, diddla, bidida, bidida. So it gives you, the flexibility to do stuff like that. And the third thing is you open up your mouth and you go. Commit yourself for singing for 10 minutes without stopping and see what happens. So whatever for 10 minutes. Make sure that you don't stop. Just keep going, because the whole idea behind improvisation is simply motion. It's just the courage to keep going. So set a timer for 10 minutes. Practice singing in tenths. B-D, chest, head, 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 blah, 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 like that. And that's basically it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
There's something particularly exciting about the fact that I have no idea what my Friday Live guest will sing in a minute or two. I'm sure that's the way he likes it. He may play percussion on his chest. He may perform with his voice only, a Bach prelude. He may sing a condensed version of The Wizard of Oz, voicing all the characters. Maybe he plans to do a voicestra version of Hot Tub Time Machine. I'm pretty sure he won't sing Don't Worry, Be Happy, but you never know. All of that is possible because my Friday Live guest today is Bobby McFerrin, one of the musical world's greatest adventurers. Since releasing his self-titled first album in 1982, Bobby McFerrin has used his 4-octave vocal range, his broad musical knowledge from jazz to pop to classical to traditional folk music, and his unrelenting imagination and spontaneity to explore the possibilities of the human voice. Over the years, he's collaborated with Yo-Yo Ma, former Q guest Chick Corea, Robin Williams, the Muppets, Herbie Hancock, and audience members around the world. If you're going to a Bobby McFerrin show, there's a good chance you'll end up singing along. And now, after 10 Grammy Award-winning records, Bobby McFerrin has released a new album titled Vocabularies, 8 years in the making, and I've got to say it's a remarkable piece of work. He's with me here in Studio Q as our Friday Live guest throughout the show. Hello, sir.
Hello.
What a pleasure it is to have you here.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
You were going to start us off with a song, but you're sitting at the table, so you've got a microphone.
Oh, I've got a microphone.
You don't actually need to.
Okay.
So that was just you improvising, clearly.
Just improvising, yeah, right.
So what made you think to do that?
Oh, I didn't think.
You didn't? You just went,
opened up my mouth.
Put the microphone in front of you. And okay,
right.
Try it again and see what comes out. When you do, let me explain to people who aren't watching this yet, who are hearing it though. When you do the percussion on your chest while you're singing, so you got your left hand, the microphone's in your left hand, you're singing along and kind of almost voicing the notes with your fingers, and then you were playing your chest with your right hand.
Right.
Does that actually ground you somehow while you're improvising those notes, or do you just want to add accompaniment to
it's just an accompaniment of a sort. It's just a percussive hit. The difference is and it feels good too. It really does.
Yeah, it doesn't ever cut you off or hurt you to be pounding your chest.
It doesn't hurt.
Now, what if you were to not do the voicing, the music, just do the percussion? What would that sound like? Right.
Yeah. So the slap is like the snare and the thumb is the bass.
Yeah. You know, I know you could do a million things right now with your voice, and I've been in preparation for this, listening to your records and watching you on YouTube, these remarkable performances. What you do seems to be to expand the possibilities of the potential of the human voice. Mm-hmm. Do you think that singers, in general, in the popular canon, don't go as far as they could when they're using their voice?
Well, that could generally be true. I think singers generally try to listen deeply to themselves to figure out what they sound like. That's what I did in the beginning of my career, because when I decided that I was a singer, I spent 6 years exploring my voice before I actually did my first solo voice concert. I spent the first 2 of those years purposefully not listening to other singers because I'm very impressionable. I wanted to find out what my sound was. The idea of being on stage alone came up one day. I've been enamored with Keith Jarrett's solo piano concerts, as a pianist, and I thought that was really a really brave thing for him to do. So I thought to myself, what would it be like for a singer to be on stage without a band? I could see myself on stage, but I couldn't hear it. So I spent a good 6 years listening to that image that I, saw of myself. Singers, I'm not sure in general, but, I believe that most singers have an idea. They have a pretty good idea of what they want to be. I want to be a pop singer. I want to be a jazz singer. I want to be a country singer. They kind of have that idea generally. I didn't really have any models to follow, so it took me actually a good long 4 or 5 years to even get the confidence to be on stage alone and do it. So I would start a little bit at a time.
Somewhat ironic, given that you now play massive halls by yourself on stage with nothing, no nets, right?
But it began with just one tune, and then 2, and then I took it from there.
So, but it occurs to me that, given that you do so much with your voice, and you dip into various genres as well, and I look at you and I go, well, and everybody who would see you might say, well, that's Bobby McFerrin. He's the top athlete. He can do this, others can't. But then I think, is that because other singers aren't socialized to do what you do? In other words, why couldn't everybody you've got the range, but why couldn't people follow in your footsteps? That too often, rather than just picking your spots, as you were suggesting singers do, people are stratified into this is the way to sing. Sing like, this is the top of the game, you're Celine Dion or you're Bowie, and don't try other stuff.
Well, for me, I can look back at my musical history, and I'm grateful that I was a music student at a time when musicians were really beginning to explore different genres. Miles Davis was really getting into exploring rock music. The late 60s, we had the Beatles bringing the music of the East, in their popular pieces. Musicians were generally exploring different kinds of genres, and I grew up in a house that not only loved classical music. My father and mother were both classically trained singers. My father sang with the Metropolitan Opera. But, they also loved Count Basie. They also loved these great jazz singers, Billie Holiday, Dakota Staton, Etta Jones. And so, and then 60s radio at the time was very, very different because it was just the color palette of music back in the 60s was great. I mean, in a single radio station, you could hear James Brown, and then they would play movie themes. They play the Carpenters, and they play Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder,
Right.
Cream, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin. This is all on one radio station. And so I grew up surrounded by different musical languages, you know, not only classical music, but Negro spirituals and gospel music and African music. And I equate it to a child growing up in a home where 4 different languages are spoken. Your uncle speaks German, your aunt speaks Spanish, your father speaks French.
You end up dipping in and out of those languages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So when they speak to you, you simply respond. So, you know, the musical information that I have in my head, it's just all this different kind of music that I heard growing up, all these different languages.
And that's what shows of yours are like. You'll jump from one moment or musical idea or genre to another. For example, you do Ave Maria.
Yeah.
And even just the backing part of that. Give us a little taste of what you do.
Do I need to do it on this? It's a Bach prelude that Charles Gounod wrote the Ave Maria melody on top of.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it sounds a lot easier than it is.
Well, I've been doing it for a while, so it's muscle memory.
That's the Bobby McFerrin there.
Right.
Now, is it true that you always open your shows with improv, like the first couple of songs?
The first 2 pieces are always improvised.
Why?
I want to do the riskiest thing first, and it also gives me a chance to check out where my voice is, to listen to the acoustics of the hall, try and pick up the vibe of the audience. Check out my range for the night. What kind of voice do I have?
So just to clarify, you go on stage tonight, sold out show at Roy Thompson Hall in Toronto. A couple thousand, 3,000 people there who paid, I don't know, $50, $75. You walk on stage with no idea what you're going to do.
With no idea. and I do. And it's funny, my rule used to be that the first piece was always improvised. And I found that the most difficult moment of the evening for me was the second piece. What was the second piece going to be? So I decided to make that also an improvisation, because it's not the first piece that's the hardest, it's the second one.
So when does it strike gold, and when has there ever been an awkward moment where it hasn't worked?
Well, it always works. I mean, as long as you're doing it, it's working, because improvisation is basically motion, the courage just to keep going. So the moment you open up your mouth and you just start singing, whether you like what comes out or not, it's still working.
But you got to have a toolbox that you're drawing from, right?
Well, I've got, I'm just very confident that whatever comes out, it's going to be some material. It's going to give me material to work with.
Clearly.
So the first couple of for example, so right away it's disjointed. It doesn't really have a melody yet. I'm not quite sure where it's going to go, so I'll start thinking to myself, well, what can I grab onto? Where can I go with this? What is this all about? What is it trying to say? I mean, all those questions I'm asking myself, as I'm improvising, and eventually, if I keep doing something long enough, I'll get an idea about what it is, what I'm trying to say, and I'll just sort of solidify that and work with it.
But I'm sorry if I'm deconstructing this to the bone here, but I'm really curious about it. So because I've done theater sports, say, where you and you call out to the crowd. This is comedy improv. What do you want to hear? And they get a couple of ideas, and then you take a moment to think about where you're going.
Yeah.
All right, this is where I'm going to start this. So when you go on stage, and you say you open your mouth and whatever comes out, comes out. Is there a moment where you go, I know where I'm going to start? Or does it just, no, right?
No.
This is, of course, I knew this was going to be your answer. So you just open your mouth.
Yeah.
So right now, go.
Yeah, you just open your mouth and whatever comes out. It's just having the confidence that something is there, something is just waiting to burst forth, and you just open your mouth and you just go with it. And lots of times I basically just sit back and listen to what's coming out for a while, just to get centered and focused. You know.
Do you surprise yourself with where
Oh,
it
there are
goes?
times where something comes out and I go, "Wow, what is
Wow,
this?"
I Bobby
You know?
McFerrin myself.
Right? Yeah, or something. Yeah.
I'm going to get to the vocabulary. It's this new record because what you've done is, like I say, it's quite remarkable. As I said in the introduction, take me back for a moment. You talked about growing up in a musical family. I understand that you had a light bulb moment, something that went off in your 20s when you realized that you definitely wanted to be a singer. What
Yeah.
was it that flicked the switch?
Yeah, it was July the 11th. I remember the day, July the 11th, 1977. I was living in Salt Lake City. It was a beautiful day, 70s or 80s, nice and warm. It was around noon. I was employed by the University of Utah Dance Department as an accompanist. And in between classes, I walked home to get some lunch.
Accompanist on instruments? Or?
On piano
Okay,
and
okay.
percussion instruments and flutes,
Sure. Yeah.
And between the campus and my house, which is like a 25-minute walk, I realized that I was a singer. I mean, it was just a very gentle sort of push that said, you know what, you're a singer. I think I resisted it for a long time because my mother and father and sister were singers, and I think I wanted to differentiate myself from them. And I was always interested in piano anyway. We had a piano around the house. I was taking lessons since I was about 8 or 9 or 10. And I played piano in bands and pretty much had a career as a pianist and thought I was a pianist for a long, long time. But I always had this sort of nagging doubt in the back of my head that I wasn't. And I wasn't really into electronic keyboards like synthesizers and stuff like that, which could bend notes and all that kind of stuff and produce all these different colors. I wasn't into that because I liked the action of the piano. I liked piano playing. I liked piano players. And walking home one day from class, I suddenly thought to myself, you know what? You're a singer. When I got home, I opened up the Yellow Pages. I found a hotel that was the Salt Lake Hilton Hotel. I called the phone number, asked to speak to the manager at the piano bar. He just happened to be there. He's never there. He said, it's funny, I come in a couple of times a month or something like that. Picked up the phone. I said, I'd like to come in and audition for your room. And he said, could you come in tomorrow? So I went in. I sang 5 songs. One was You Are the Sunshine of My Life. One was the only a cappella piece that I knew at the time was that I did at the time was a tune by Joan Armatrading called Opportunity. I sang.
And sorry, the Stevie song, You Are the Sunshine, you just sang in the air?
No. I
played
the piano.
Right.
I accompanied myself on piano. Opportunity was the only song I did,
Right.
a cappella. And based on those 5 songs, which were the only 5 songs that I knew, he hired me. And he said, can you start in a month? And I said, sure. I learned a song a day. So I had about 35 songs when I started. And that's how I began. I did piano bars for about a year and a half. I did this festival in Telluride. I just happened to be there, living in Salt Lake City. There's this great jazz festival in Telluride, Colorado, and met Johnny Vodakovich, who was a drummer of a group called the Astral Project, and he lived in New Orleans. And so, just driving through New Orleans, I stopped. I heard this band play. Asked if I could sit in, and singers generally, for some reason or not, aren't considered musicians, and so they put me on last. They said, okay, you can sing the last number with us. Sang the last number with the band. They said, sing another one. So I sang another one. They said, sing another one. I sang another one. And 2 weeks later, I found myself living in New Orleans, working with this band, Astral Project. So, and
then where does Bobby McFerrin, the adventurer, come in? So back to that walk that you took in Salt Lake City, and you say, I'm a singer. Why didn't you go the route of what most people would do, which is I'm going to be a pop singer,
right.
I'm going to be a jazz guy?
I thought about it. I thought about being in front of a big band, and doing, like what Michael Bublé does or Harry Connick did, with a big band. I thought about that. I thought about being a jazz singer with a band, which I did for a long time, actually. My first tour of Europe was with a band Chico Freeman put together, the tenor saxophone player. I worked with him, and I thought, okay, I'll be a jazz singer. It was the jazz audience that first heard me, and I thought about that. Al Jarreau was pretty big, and I thought, well, that's kind of an interesting thing that he's doing, But I'm a little bit different, but maybe I'll go that route. I wasn't too sure. The solo voice thing, or the image of me on stage, was very persistent. I kept coming back to that, but I resisted it for a while because to me it was really frightening. What does a singer do on stage? How do you hold an audience
Not a lot
for
of
90
people
minutes?
do it. Yeah.
You know, how do you hold an audience for 90 minutes without a band? You know,
And without even accompanying yourself.
without even accompanying myself.
You don't bring out an acoustic guitar or you
No.
play the piano.
No, and I had
Even though you can.
I can, yes.
But you choose not to.
I choose not to. And in the beginning, it was interesting trying to explain to interviewers or reporters, you know, what I was going to do, because they thought that I was going to be on stage with a prepared tape or something, you know.
Right.
And I would have to say no.
Backing tracks or something.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Hey, so I'm so thrilled that you're here with us throughout the show, and I want to get to your record in the next block when we get a chance to talk and talk more about vocabularies. Can I ask you about "Don't Worry, Be Happy" really quickly? Because
Sure.
because just announcing that you're on this show, right? I mean, everybody, and the big curiosity is people wondering, because you're so identified with that song,
Right.
and that to only know you from that song limits the knowledge of all the things that Bobby McFerrin is. People are wondering, people have been tweeting me this all week, whether you like that song or you despise that song at this
I don't
point
despise it.
for becoming such an identifiable
No, I
moment
like
in your
it.
career.
I do. I have incredible gratitude for that song. You know, I get all kinds of wonderful stories from people. You know, the song helped me through, you know, my senior year in college. It helped me get through illness in my family. It helped me to get through a rough time in my life. I listen to that song still, and you know, it brings me joy. You know, I get all kinds of comments like that, and I'm very appreciative. I wrote that song in about an hour. You know, lyrics and all, and recorded it, and didn't do a single thing to promote it. I didn't do a "Don't Worry, Be Happy" tour. The tune took off all by itself. I don't sing it in concert and haven't in 22 years, and it's because, for two reasons. One, people identify me with that song, and they think, you know, that's what I do, and it's just a little fraction of what I do. And also, I was sick of singing it before anybody ever really heard it. You know, I had been doing it for a while before it was even recorded, so...
Bobby, I got to stop you there. We're going to catch up more in the coming half hour. Bobby McFerrin, my Friday Live guest. His album is titled Vocabularies. Q at cbc.ca. Twitter, Jiangameshi. Back in just a moment. Do stick around.